During World War II, German intelligence relied on a bisexual Peruvian party girl to gather information about British military plans, but she was a double agent, part of an elite group of spies responsible for spinning lies to the Nazis to hide when and where the Allies would land for D-Day. Let's talk about Elvira de la Fuente Chaudoir. Welcome back to Yesterqueers. My name's Amanda, and I'm a public historian of queer history. Elvira Concepcion Josefina de la Fuente was born either in Peru or Paris in 1911. Her father, who'd made his fortune exporting guano from Peru for use in fertilizer, was a diplomat who was stationed in France. Elvira was raised and educated in Paris, and by the time she was an adult, she could speak Spanish, French, and English fluently. Elvira was both extremely smart and easily bored. Her MI6 assessment said that she had a quick brain but was probably lazy about using it. That same assessment also said that Elvira favors the companionship of women who may not be careful of their virginity. Elvira dutifully married a Belgian stockbroker named Jean Chaudoir when she was 23, but 4 years and dozens of affairs later, and Elvira decided that married life was not for her, so she ran away to Cannes with her best friend and probable girlfriend, Roma Gilby. Elvira and Roma spent the next couple of years partying and gambling away enormous sums of money. Elvira loved to gamble, especially playing cards, but she was terrible at it. When the Nazis invaded in 1940, she and Roma fled in the most cinematic way possible, racing to St. Malo in a flashy convertible. From there, Elvira took a boat to England and settled in London. By 1941, Elvira had racked up an enormous amount of gambling debt, about 60,000 of today's dollars. And because of the war, she couldn't access her family's funds to pay it off. She took a job translating at the BBC, but of course, she got bored. In April of 1942, a Royal Air Force officer overheard her complaining about her financial situation and recommended her to Charles Dancy, the assistant chief of MI6. Now, Elvira seems like an odd choice for a spy. She was infamous in England, France, and Belgium for her love of partying and gambling, and she had to learn to keep a secret. Elvira was famously reprimanded just a couple of months after being recruited because she was overheard telling Roma in the middle of a casino that she was being trained to use invisible ink in preparation for being sent on a mission to France. But Elvira also spoke 3 languages, socialized in very influential circles, had a Peruvian passport, and had a good cover story for traveling back and forth to France because her father was the Peruvian ambassador to the Vichy government. She was also kind of the perfect candidate because no one would ever think that a woman who spent most of her time partying, gambling, and let's say cavorting with people of all genders could possibly be smart enough to be a spy. So Dancy signed her up and sent her back to Cannes in 1942 to Coat Trail. Essentially, her mission was to party and gamble until she caught the attention of someone who could recruit her into German intelligence. The unlucky soul who fell for it was Hermann Bleel, a sort of freelance German intelligence operative who'd been appointed by Hitler's second-in-command, Hermann Göring. After spending time with Bleel and learning how to use German invisible ink, Elvira returned to London and told a panel of MI5 agents everything. On October 28, 1942, she officially joined the Double Cross, an elite group of double agents, and was given the codename Bronx after her favorite cocktail. Elvira and 4 other spies were the load-bearing center of Double Cross, and author Ben Macintyre describes them as the oddest military unit ever assembled: a bisexual Peruvian playgirl, a tiny Polish fighter pilot, a mercurial Frenchwoman, a Serbian seducer, and a deeply eccentric Spaniard with a diploma in chicken farming. These are the men and women who wove a web of deception so intricate that they trapped the entire German army within it and gave the Allies the upper hand on D-Day. The Allies knew that the only chance they had to break Germany's hold on Europe was to liberate France, and that their best shot at that was to break through the Atlantic Wall, the weakest portion of which stretched along the English Channel. But the Germans knew all of that too, so the Allies waged a massive collective disinformation campaign called Operation Bodyguard to keep Germany from learning their true plans. Elvira's role was letter writing. She wrote long dispatches to her German handler, chock full of false information. In one case, she even thwarted a German chemical attack by making her handler believe that the British were so well stocked on chemical weapons that their retaliation would be devastating to German troops. As the Germans began to suspect that an invasion was imminent, Elvira steered them away from Normandy and towards the Bay of Biscay. She wrote an incredibly detailed letter outlining how she'd gotten the information from a Royal Air Force captain after getting him drunk. Elvira had never met that captain, and he was known not to be a drinker. On D-Day, a 1,500-man German panzer unit of Tiger tanks was sitting on the Bay of Biscay, about 300 miles away from the beaches at Normandy. And because Elvira had to keep up appearances so that she could continue to mislead the Germans even after D-Day, she sent her handler a letter that essentially said, "Whoops, my bad, looks like it's going to be Normandy instead," and timed it to arrive after the invasion. Elvira did all of this, by the way, without alerting her girlfriend, Monica Sharif. Monica never knew anything about Elvira's work during the war, and neither did anybody else until 1995, when Elvira gave a newspaper interview. The web of disinformation spun by the double-cross agents and other intelligence units throughout Europe worked, and although the cost was steep, the Allies won the day on June 6, 1944. It remains the largest seaborne invasion in history. After the war, Elvira left the world of espionage behind and settled in the south of France, where she opened a gift shop. She stayed there until her death in 1996 at the age of 85. In her final interview, Elvira said of her days as a spy, "I recall the adventure as the most wonderful and intense period of my life." That's it for today. As always, more information, including sources and further reading, is available in the usual place.